After an incident, the hardest question is not whether the agent made a mistake. The hardest question is whether anyone can prove which policy was active, who changed it, and what the agent actually followed. This is Lesson 20 in Claude Code, Production AI Agents. Today we make policy as code, audit, and lineage practical, so agent governance can be reconstructed instead of guessed. Last lesson drew the boundary for secrets, egress, and data. Now we need those rules to become deployable configuration, observable behavior, and evidence that survives an incident review. The core idea is this: policy as code turns intent into repeatable enforcement. A rule in a slide deck is a preference. A rule in managed settings reviewed and deployed is an operating control. Once the rule is code, teams can diff it, test it, approve it, roll it out, and prove which version was active during a specific agent run. The visible artifact is the incident reconstruction timeline. It has 5 parts: policy repo, managed settings, deployment record, audit log, and lineage trace. Each part answers a different forensic question. This part of the visual map matters because it shows the actual moving pieces: managed settings, policy repo, deployment scale, audit logs, lineage traces. If one of those pieces is invisible, the team will struggle to operate the workflow under pressure. Use this checklist before treating the workflow as ready: policy repo, managed settings, deployment record, audit log, lineage trace. These are not decorative boxes. They are the operating questions that decide whether the agent can be trusted outside a demo. In practice, this example has 4 parts: policy drift, unreconstructible incidents, shadow configuration, missing ownership, weak forensics. The point is to make the agent's work inspectable rather than asking everyone to trust a polished final answer. Score the design against this rubric: policy repo, managed settings, deployment record, audit log, lineage trace. A weak score does not mean the idea is useless. It means the workflow needs stronger boundaries before it becomes production work. Day 2 is where policy as code, audit, and lineage becomes real. A teammate asks why a run behaved differently from yesterday. The answer should not depend on memory or guesswork. The team should inspect the run identity, the boundary configuration, the stored evidence, and the handover note. If the design supports that conversation, the agent is becoming operable. If not, the team has a fragile demo with a professional looking interface. Use this implementation checklist before expanding scope: manage settings, policy repo, deployment scale, audit logs, lineage traces. Each item should have an owner and a verification step. If the checklist only exists in a planning document, it will drift. Put the important parts close to the runtime and close to the release gate. Block release when you see these risks: policy drift, unreconstructible incidents, shadow configuration, missing ownership, weak forensics. Blocking release is not failure. It is how production teams avoid turning a known weakness into an incident. The aim is not to slow the agent down. The aim is to make speed survivable. The mental model is a black box flight recorder. You hope not to need it, but when something goes wrong, it tells the team what the system saw, which controls were active, and how events unfolded. Our worked example is a managed settings rollout across a team. The policy starts in review, moves through deployment, applies to the runtime, records agent actions, and links each result back to the rule set in force. When the policy changes, the release note should explain the risk being controlled, not just the setting that changed. Build the operating path before the incident. Store policy in a repository, review changes, deploy predictably, record runtime decisions, connect the audit log to the artifact the agent produced. The timeline should let a reviewer move from a final answer back through the run, the tool calls, the policy version, and the human approval that allowed the action. Use the rubric. Ask whether the system has a policy repo, managed settings, deployment record, audit log, and lineage trace. If one link is missing, reconstruction becomes storytelling. The common mistake is having policy in a slide deck but not in the runtime. That creates the appearance of governance without the enforcement and evidence needed when the agent matters. Let us recap. For policy and lineage, write rules as code, deploy them deliberately, record decisions, and link every artifact back to the control that allowed it. If a reviewer cannot trace the final artifact back to the active policy, the team is relying on trust where it needs evidence. The lesson learned is this: governance is not what the team intended. Governance is what the runtime enforced and what the audit trail can prove. Subscribe for Claude Code, production AI agents. The companion book is linked in the description. In lesson 21, we use the same production lens for the hidden supply chain, plugins, skills, and MCP servers.